Thank you, Sam, and thank you so much for having me at this event. Before I talk about the HiddenREF, because we have such an international audience, I guess I should probably explain what REF is before I introduce the HiddenREF. So REF, the Research Excellence Framework, and there we have the beautiful word excellence again that we can debate about, is basically a quality comparison exercise carried out by the funders of UK higher education institutions. And how it works is that you have expert panels that review the research that is carried out, and that is through the research outputs, impact case studies, and environment statements. And then they assess the quality of what gets put forward in their panels. And the results of that are used mainly to benchmark between institutions. But because it's the funding bodies, they also influence heavily how much money an institution will get for the period coming forward, which is why it's very competitive, and there's a lot of resources in institutions used on getting as good a result in that exercise as possible. So the last time this was run was in 2014, and in 2014 191,000 research outputs were submitted to those expert panels, and the large part of these were publications, and only 3% of the outputs represented all kinds of other contributions made to research, such as software or data sets. So the REF, similar to other funding or award exercises, is heavily based on traditional research outputs such as publications, and though the rules allow to submit also other research outputs, they are often not put forward. So the HiddenREF is an initiative to celebrate all kinds of research outputs and the unsung roles that make them possible. So that's basically stemming out from an idea that in institutions, there are a lot of people who try and push for open and reproducible science, who support researchers in writing good software, in sharing their data, and all these roles are working, but to make science more reproducible and maybe better, if you can put it that way. But they stay hidden because basically in the overall picture of the REF exercise, it's what gets put forward is the publications in the end. So the HiddenREF is currently like a volunteer-led initiative with 7 committee members, and we launched in February 2020 with a timeline that looked like this. So we thought we asked for people to put in categories in what they would like to submit to an alternative exercise. There could be categories that the REF already knows, but where there are just not that many submissions. But there could be also new things that that REF doesn't even recognize to be possible. And our plan was to announce at the end of June which categories we would open submissions for, then start the submissions in July, do our and those in September do the review and announce winners in November. November would have been the deadline where the submissions for REF 2021 would need to be in. But like everyone else with COVID-19, and we all moved to home offices, and this being a volunteer-led effort, it kind of dropped to the bottom of our priorities list. Plus, REF announced that they wouldn't stick to their original deadline. So it's been a bit quiet over the last month, but we all got reasonably used to our new schedules as home office. REF announced that they are now going to have their submissions in March 2021. And that means the HiddenREF is back as well with a new deadline, with a new timeline and more activity over the coming month. So we now keep the suggestions for new categories open until the end of September. Submissions will open in October and stay open until the end of February. And then in April 2021, we will announce our winners. And if we can meet again by then, that might even come with a physical celebration of prizes for those winners. So since our launch, we've gathered a few supporters, people that and institutions that really like the idea. Some of them are the people we work for, like the DCC in my case, or the Software Sustainability Institute, that kind of give us a little bit of our working time to work and promote the HiddenREF. But there are also a few big publishers that came on board, and things like Research Libraries UK, and that's really nice to raise the profile of the idea and the work that goes in this. So at the moment we have 21, if I counted correctly, suggested categories that we can pick from. They reach from software and data sets, so the ones that actually are also good to go into REF, to actual people categories like professional services or research citizenships or technicians, and that really shows that there is a need to recognize those hidden roles that usually don't have any opportunities to get an award, or that don't get much recognition, but that are really key for researchers to carry out their research, and without who those most of the big research projects wouldn't happen. So this is where we are at the moment. We still would love for people to get involved, especially with us kicking off with a bit more force now going forward. So what you can do is raise awareness, for example, by tweeting about this event and tagging the HiddenREF and spreading the word, and to let us know who else we could be in touch with and where else we could promote the initiative. Suggest sponsors and supporters, or if you are in an institution that could be a good supporter, please do get in touch. We like the list of people we have, but there can always be more. And obviously, the suggestion of additional categories is still open. So if there's anything that you have in mind that isn't on our list yet, please put that in. You can also put in suggestions to change categories that currently exist if you feel they could be improved. And then obviously, once the submission starts, submit your own outputs, or ask if your research support staff maybe raise awareness with your researchers, so they could submit you, for example. And the way this will work is similar to the REF exercise, that we'll put together panels for the various categories to look at the submissions and pick a winner. We have no idea how many submissions we will get, so we don't know how much effort that will be. But if you're interested in some of the categories on this list and you would love to see what gets submitted there, you can volunteer for a panel. And also all that information is on our webpage as well. And you can always be in touch on Twitter. And I think I'm already a little bit over time, so it's left to say thank you. And I look forward to the questions that come in. And you can always be in touch with me afterwards if you want to.
Thanks, Patricia. That was really great and really interesting to be introduced to the HiddenREF. I certainly I still don't actually properly understand the REF in its entirety, being an early career researcher. But starting to learn more and more about the culture that exists, I'm certainly interested in the HiddenREF and the way in which we can perhaps better recognise people's contributions to research. The HiddenREF is obviously counter to the UK's Research Excellence Framework and therefore is quite UK-centric, but we do have quite an international audience today. How would you advise advocating or establishing a similar initiative? And, are there other countries that do things slightly differently that we can look to for inspiration?
So it's obviously for this round we're looking mainly at UK submissions and volunteers from the UK, but other countries have similar exercises. They work slightly differently than in the UK, but there are assessment exercises in a variety of countries. So if anyone there would like to set up something similar, we would love to help and basically share the knowledge of how we set it up, how much work it is, what works, what might not work. Some of the committee members have already done that for other initiatives, and we certainly would be happy to do that again for the HiddenREF if there's an interest. And even if you don't have an research assessment exercise at the moment in your country, something like the HiddenREF could be interesting to just in general raise awareness and for less traditional research outputs. You might need to think of a catchy name then, because REF doesn't necessarily mean anything to anyone outside the UK, but that still we'd be happy to see that picked up outside.
That's really good, thank you. I'm sure there are people listening that would be interested in taking you up on that offer. So we do have some more questions. One from Stephen Eglin is, how can the non-HiddenREF encourage more non-traditional outputs, i.e. not papers or publications, in the 2021 round? And we know that many preprints are submittable, but won't many institutions play it conservative and still want the glossies 4-star papers?
The short answer is probably yes. I mean, one of the reasons why we started the HiddenREF is because on paper, a lot of this could go into the non-HiddenREF, and also a lot of talks following the last REF round. Research England, who back then highlighted that they are happy to receive data sets and software and all these other outputs as panel submissions. I think the problem is exactly as you state that in a lot of institutions, the people that make the selection of what they as an institution submit to REF, they are, they stick to what they know, and what they know that worked last time were the publications. So I guess REF could be, I mean, they've already introduced an open access policy, and that pushed in some bits. But like preprints, for example, that was like a long discussion if they were like the right kind of open access, so to say, to be submitted. So I guess a bit of a clearer policy there, maybe also encourage that, like, things like the publications that are submitted have to at least, the underlying data openly available, unless there are good reasons to restrict that, which a lot of funders do. So checking on that aspect would already, I think, push those outputs quite a bit. But yeah, I don't really know how we change research culture in institutions completely to
I think that might get covered a little bit more with talk, but just a couple more for you before we wrap up. So what has the response been from universities so far? How receptive have they been to this idea of a hidden REF?
Well, there's the question is like who's the university or the institution. I mean, I think a lot of people that we've talked to so far like the idea, and that's because also down to, I don't think I've met a single researcher that actually likes the normal REF exercise. So people are interested in this alternative thing. And obviously the supporters we have are also the institutions and organizations that you see pushing for a change in culture and towards more open science more generally. I'm not entirely sure what would happen if we take this in front of the people that submit REF in our institutions, but that would be an interesting exercise and maybe something for us to try in the next few months.
We're right behind you. So thank you, Patricia. There are actually a whole host of other questions coming in, but I'm sure we'll be able to address some of those in the discussion later.